I'm Kate.
I'm Allison.
And I'm Sonya.
And today we are dishing from Recess Tapas Lounge at 727 15th Street.
It's just steps from the White House, and it's tapas with a Peruvian accent. That's not a Peruvian accent, but it's great food.
Actually, most of the things we have on the table today are seafood. We have an incredible looking scallop. Look at that presentation.
Yeah.
The lomo saltado is actually, that's our Peruvian steak with French fries and potatoes. And oh, doesn't that look good? Look at this seafood salad made with the mussels and our camarones al coco, which is coconut shrimp, but doesn't it sound much better when we say it all Peruvian like that?
And we have a wonderful new addition to the dishing chairs. We have a new host. Allison Brooks is here with us, and she will be with us all the time. Welcome.
I am thrilled. Thank you so much, Sonya. Thank you so much, Kate.
And let's start dishing.
We are thrilled to be dishing with one of our favorite guests, author Kerry Reichs. Welcome back to the District Dish.
Thank you.
We did talk with you about your second book, but you're back already with a third. It's like you just keep popping them out.
She
I like
very
hanging out
fast.
with you guys.
Oh,
I gotta work.
It's a good way to do it.
So tell us all about the new book.
All about
Speaking
the
of
new
popping
book.
them out.
Right, exactly. So I like to call it Modern Family Meets CNN. It's 5 different points of view stories about unconventional ways to get into a family. So basically these are stories that are familiar and I make them unfamiliar. You have the woman who is making the career versus family decision, but I make her not in a relationship. So she's debating whether to do it alone through a sperm donor. You have a man who's trying to form a family, but I make him single and I make him straight. So we look at his challenges pursuing adoption. And then we have a couple that are caught into what I like to call the murky gray, where our science has gotten past our social understandings and our laws. They've got frozen embryos. She wants to use them. He doesn't want her to. His new wife definitely doesn't want her to. And so they are caught up in kind of a political controversy and a lawsuit over how to deal with this unknown of frozen biologicals.
That was the couple that I found, or the scenario I found the most fascinating in this book. Now, the politics and the science and everything that you brought into it, would that require a lot of research on your part, or did you make up a little bit of it? Like, where did this come from?
As an ex-lawyer, my mom would say, a recovering lawyer, I mean, I'm incapable of making stuff up, especially the legal. So the research is exhaustive and accurate. Where I have to do a little toning down is that for me it's geekily interesting into the minutia and not so much for your average reader. So what you'll get is a little 101 on how our laws are dealing with things like frozen embryos and how do we treat them. You know, when I like to call myself a page 8 writer. I'm looking for the back page thing that's going to be the headlines in the future. I want to beat the headlines. And when I started writing this, there was only one state that had any personhood legislation for embryos on the ballot, and it disappeared. It didn't go anywhere. As we see now with the national political conversation and the national presidential elections coming up, this is popping up on ballots all over the country. And so it's something that, you know, we are starting to address and consider. And I wanted to make sure to give a very accurate depiction. And even now I'm learning new court decisions are happening all the time that is going to continue to change this landscape.
How do you make these books so quickly? Do you have all these stories in your head that you're just ready to get out onto paper?
And this one was particularly personal, right?
This one's a little personal. I found myself in my late 30s wanting a family but not being in a relationship. So I actually did have a child through a donor, and my son and I form a family of 2. And it really got me thinking a lot about how the modern family is changing. You know, the new normal doesn't look like the beaver cleavers. It looks like what you see through the cracks on the picket fence. And with this book, I wanted to tell these stories and truly how challenging it can be to be an unconventional family, in the hopes of breaking down the perception we have in our society that there is one right form of family. Right. Because my thought is that in many ways, some of the families that are different are as nurturing as they are unconventional. And above all, it's a comedy, so it's sort of like the obstacles and the road bumps we all have to overcome to get to family.
Now, it is fiction, but I think, you know, a lot of friends come to me and say, oh, I'm thinking about adoption. I'm thinking about, you know, doing one of the 5 scenarios or something totally different that's in this book. And I found myself recommending it to them a lot just so that they could see, well, this is what this person fictionally went through. So it's actually kind of a guidebook of sorts, too, to a lot of people that are going through this right now.
Absolutely.
Or to make you feel like it could be worse, maybe.
Right.
Like you could be fighting over embryos.
It could be worse, for sure. You know, yeah. yeah, I definitely will backpedal away from memoirs so fast I'll fall on my butt. But there is a lot of truth in the story. These are stories of people that walk around next to us, and the characters really breathe off the page. You know, one of the characters is a very common friend of mine, is a woman who doesn't want children, and the challenges that she faces having made that decision and finding a relationship. But, you know, more and more, I have the same experience. People constantly, I get an email once a week now. I have a friend, I have a cousin. I saw you speak at once at church. You know, I'd love to talk to you more. I'm thinking about doing this myself. We are an interesting crossroads of women who are otherwise content. They have got great careers, they are happy, they have wonderful social lives, they just don't have the partner to have the children, and the clock is ticking.
Well, the definition of a family is now so broad, you know, and I think that you really showed us that with your book, and it's really exciting. I bet you do get a lot of really personal emails and people, you know, really reaching out to you, because there's nothing really more personal than family.
In addition to writing the book, have you found yourself being a sort of an advocate for what you went through at all, or no?
I wouldn't say advocate, because again, with family, you have to be so careful not to suggest there is one right way or wrong way. What I would like to do is to open up the way people think about it so they're up for everything. I would say I'm a resource more than an advocate. One of the things you hear a lot that's a little critical of single moms is that, you know, I personally am responsible for unraveling the very fabric of our society by being a single parent. And, you know, I beg to differ. Single parents could, I don't know, be president of the United States if they raise their sons well. But what I'd like to sort of do is bring the experiences, the real experiences, that these are not decisions that are flippantly made. Nobody is being cavalier in this choice. It's a wrenching decision for a woman to have a child on her own. In fact, I get asked a lot, who do I most identify with in this book? And you would think the answer would be the young woman struggling with this decision. But everyone knows that pregnant women are really smug. And I became pregnant writing this book. So half the book I was writing from the point of view of trying to have a baby. But then most of the book I was writing when I was smugly pregnant. So I actually really identified with the male character who's going through the adoption as he's sort of staring down the walls of Target and the baby items rising to the ceiling, overwhelmed with panic at all the stuff he's going to have to acquire and learn how to use to be a parent on his own. And so, you know, all of these stories are things that you can relate to, but maybe in a voice or a format you haven't seen before. And that's just a way of connecting all of us, but doing it in a way that may also open your eyes to some things.
Let's dish on this book tour. Where have you been? Where are you going?
Oh my gosh.
Does your son go with you?
My son goes everywhere with me, and that can lead to some very interesting conversations in Massachusetts. We were just in Boston. I got to go to the second oldest bookstore in the United States in Andover, and they had us on the cable access, and so my son is frequently just wandering through the frame, about head high, so you really just see this much of him, his little toe head. We were in Chicago, New York, Charlotte, Charleston, Spartanburg, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. is the big homecoming finale on Tuesday night. I'm very excited.
Well, that is wonderful. We are excited. Can't wait to read your book.
Thank you.
Yeah, when does book 4 come out? You're going to start that tomorrow?
No.
Oh my goodness.
It's like, you know, when people have kids and they're like, oh, when are you having the next one? When are you having the next one?
I know, right? The toddler version. Well, I will say that I do spend a lot of time researching. For example, in this book, if you want to know what it's like to try to impress a date by doing trapeze, and turns out you don't have a natural aptitude, this is the book for you. And I can tell you that my least favorite part of writing this book was taking the trapeze lessons, because I really am very poor at trapeze. But you know, among other things, the actress is she's an actress, our single mother to be, and she's going up against the role of a lifetime, a very young actress as her competition. So it's a fun dynamic there, and she calls it, her audition is more like an episode of, not an episode, a season of The Bachelor, because the director takes these women out and puts them in these funny circumstances, including trapeze lessons. And so she's trying to like do this and at the same time wrestling with whether or not she's going to actually leave it all behind to go and raise a family. So I am doing research now for the next book, and I think I'll take it down to the Low Country. As you know, I spent my summer down in Charleston, South Carolina, which like here, we love excellent food down in the South, and enjoy the lazy summer days. And so I think I'd like to set something there, which of course requires lots of research hanging
right,
out in
right.
Charleston.
Well, you've whet our appetite for the book, and this has whet our appetite to eat, so I think we're going to get to it. Thanks for dishing with us.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having me.
And as always, thank you for dishing with us. Check us out next time. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. See you soon.